Check, check. We'll wait a few minutes while folks trickle in. Folks are joining. All right, let's see. Awesome. Got one submission here from Cadam. And I know Cameron submitted a track as well. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think that was on Discord actually. Here we go. All right. Yep, we can trust SoundCloud links. Okay, cool. Ooh, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Nice. Cameron. And let's see some messages from Aaron here. Can't make it to class tonight, going to concert. 80% of a track. All right. Yeah, we'll listen to it. Song, last chorus. Okay. Oh no, I made a drop. Great title. Okay, we got 2 viewers. Excellent. Let's wait a little bit longer. All right. Cameron, I guess you're on. Make sure my desktop audio is working here. Okay. Just play a song here and make sure the audio is coming. All right. Hold on. Let me figure out the drivers here real quick. Okay, that's good. Now let's check out the desktop audio. Gonna use these. Let's see if that worked.
Level of
Yes.
serenity.
Starting to get the hang of this. Okay. All right, we got 4 viewers. Hey, Henry, I missed you too. Hey, Cadam, what's up? How's it going? All right. So today we're going to be discussing. Hey, Chica, what's up? Wait. All right. My desktop is showing. Just fast forward to the beginning here. Right. All right. So today we're going to be talking about buildups. Those are a section that come before the drop, and they help transition between whatever idea you're playing in the verse part of your song or the intro part of your song, help transition into the drop, into the like super high energy part of the track. So they kind of create this rising sense of anticipation in the listener. And I know we've talked about other little like micro moments for creating that anticipation, like pulling out the kick drum for a measure or two to set up a turnaround when you're in the drop. But for buildups, these are going to last a lot longer, like 8, sometimes even 16 measures. Maybe you all have heard the song "When Will the Bass Drop" from SNL. We're not going to push it that far, but we will demonstrate a more reasonable approach to creating a nice build-up for your drop that'll really just build up that hype in the listener, and then when the drop hits, it'll just smack them in the face, or not. It could be it could gently smack them in the face if it's a more chilled out song. But in any case, we'll talk about how to the various elements that go into that. But before we get into that, of course, we will listen to folks' homework and talk about it, give some feedback. Let me make sure my iPad here is on network. Did y'all change the password?
Telos.haus after you have free.
telos.haus.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me know if that doesn't work.
Yeah, we're good. I don't know why my iPad forgot it. Yeah, smack my face. Oh, you can't hear me well. Oh. Test. Is there a lot of fan noise? Oh, okay. Maybe I'll just sit. Actually, let me just check to see what microphone I'm using here. Okay, AMD audio device. Okay. I'll just sit closer. But everything before iPad forgot it. Oh. Just don't look away from the laptop. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Okay. Here, I can try switch. My camera has a built-in mic. Let me see if that changes anything. Where is that thing? Let's go with this for now, and I'll just try to speak up. I'll speak from the diaphragm. Hope that'll help. And if I can also turn off this AC that's nearby if there's too much like fan noise. So let me know if that's an issue. Okay, we got 7 people on the stream, so let's get started. So I got homework submissions from Cameron and Cadam and Aaron. So if anyone else has anything, could just be 7 seconds, just a little snippet. That's also fine. Now's your chance to submit it. But why don't we go ahead and start with Cameron? Cameron, Kill Shot Remix version 1. You said you sampled. Let's see. What are you covering here, Cameron? Magdalena Bay Kill Shot. Okay, haven't heard that one, but excited to check it out. All right, let's give this a listen. I haven't listened to this yet, so this will also be my first, hot take on the track. All right, as long as you're looking straight ahead, it's normal. Cool. All right, let's listen to Kill Shot by Cameron. All right, very nice. First of all, great job on the length too. Like 3 minutes and 40 seconds. That is a great amount of time for our EDM song. Give the people what they want. One technique that I saw you use a lot that I'm a really big fan of is you would cut the drums and the bass, and maybe even some other elements, when the vocal came in or at key moments to emphasize the vocal. I love that spotlight effect. It's super effective, and it lifts the listener up, when the voice comes in and then immediately drops them into the beat. So very effective. And in general, I like to think of those sorts of artistic motions as like in terms of a performance on the stage. So like, imagine new characters making their entrance. Well, they might like jump in with a flourish, or there might be some kind of other theatrical element to put the spotlight in on them as they enter the scene, and then they start playing their role. So another way that can be done is, let's say you want to introduce a new drum element, like a clap or something. You could have it do a little fill or flourish right before it then becomes part of the beat. So great use of pulling away the drums and the bass to create like that contrasting jumping in sort of moment. Very effective. It's a question. And Kadam asks, can you put effects on a specific drum in a rack? Yes, you can. We'll show how to do that. Cameron, I was wondering how you got the vocals. Did you find an acapella on YouTube, or did you use a tool to extract them? Curious about that. Another thing I liked that synth lead that you brought in. I think roughly around here, halfway through. And I thought the use of the sawtooth waveform was especially inspired. A lot of the rest of the track, it's kind of like, dark, more emphasis on the lower frequencies, kind of more hollow-ish sounds if you want. But the saw synth lead has a lot of that bright, buzzy timbre. So that creates a nice contrast without it being like too overwhelming. I think maybe you used a little bit of filtering to take out some of the highs, or maybe some reverb to push in the background. And I like too how you started off with a relatively slow, simple melody, and then you like stepped up the rate of the notes that you were playing. That created a nice energetic sense of progression. The switch from the trap intro to the like driving 4 on the floor beat. I love doing that myself. That's a great technique as well to, that's creating contrast between like, a driving 4 on the floor beat and a more hip hop or rock inspired beat. That's always a nice contrast to set up in your track that can help, create different sections in your track. And we'll get more into arranging a couple sessions from now. But that sort of technique can be a good way to, distinguish your drop from your verse or your break. Or if you later have a second drop in your track, you can use a different kind of drum pattern or, genre stylistic conventions to keep the listener's interest and keep it fresh. What else? Use the vocal removal sign for the first session. Perfect. Nice. Let's see. What else? In general, I think you did a good job here. I haven't heard this vocal before, so I'm not too familiar with it. There could be some opportunities for choosing which parts of the vocal you want to emphasize at different times, or maybe building more of a narrative arc to how you deploy the vocal. I'd have to listen to the original a bit more to get some ideas there. When you said, you said you spent a long time tinkering with the vocals to get them in time, but they're still so jumpy. Did you look up the BPM of the track online and then either make your track at the same BPM, or did you warp the vocals so that they would be at the same tempo as the rest of your track? Let's see. Magdalena Bay kill shot. Magdalena Bay kill shot BPM. Looks like it's at 99 beats per minute. I feel like your track was a bit faster than that. Maybe I don't know, 128, 130. What was your BPM? You quantized, then manually shifted things to get them to land in the right spot. Okay, 135. Okay. Yeah, so I think, so in this case, I would probably, bring in the acapella, set it to warp, and then put in the original tempo, which in this case is 99, and then when you have like your project tempo at 135, it should be, it'll automatically adjust the time, and then you shouldn't have to like manually quantize quite so much. The being able to micro adjust the transients and stuff is nice, but sometimes it can make the vocal sound a little unnatural if you're doing it too much. So I'd have to bring in the original one to see, but if you didn't try just warping the vocal and typing in its original BPM, I would suggest that just to save you some work, so you're not having to manually slide things around. Actually, now I'm kind of curious if I can, if there is an acapella just on YouTube somewhere. Okay, so content isn't available. Funny. Oh well, this one is okay. All right, so we could. Well, I'll just download it in the background and then load it in just to show you the technique I'm talking about. To MP3. This is not legal advice. But yeah, let's see. Did you try to transcribe the melody at all? Or did you just use it, just use the vocal as is? Either way is fine, of course. Cool, so we'll just show how that works in a second here. Question for later, how do you know how much of the grid value to quantize to? I think you mean like 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, 1/32. It kind of depends on the melody itself. Stuck with the original key incorporation was too funky. Yeah, I was definitely hearing some interesting harmonies in there. And if you do have a track that's got a lot of crazy chord changes that are difficult to figure out, you can drastically simplify things by using just like a single bass note. That's usually called a pedal tone. I think because like in a church organ you have the pedals, and you would there are often these passages in Baroque music where you just have like one long held note in the bass on the pedal, and then doing all sorts of stuff on the keys on top. And basically with your 808 you were doing that. You're basically just keeping it on that one bass note, and that worked fine. There's plenty of great tracks that use only a single note. And I think that's one of the cool things about EDM is that there's so many different sounds and effects and timbres you can play with that you don't always need to have like complicated jazz chord progressions to get your point across. So, sorry. To answer your question on Mole, it depends on the melody. I usually start with 1/16 notes just to because that's like a pretty common sort of like minimum amount of note duration that melodies tend to use. But especially with the human voice, you can have a lot more flexibility and fluidity. And if you quantize too much, then it'll start to sound robotic, or just the rhythm will be unnatural. So you may I would probably start with 1/16 as a rule of thumb. Listen to how it sounds, and then go in and make further adjustments. And I think especially if your track is vocal driven, it's worth spending time on the vocal to get it rhythmically how you want it. Because once you do it once, you can then later reuse it around in the track, and your work can be reused more than once effectively. So maybe I'll show that when I bring in the acapella into Ableton after the feedback session here. But any other final thoughts on Cameron's track this week? If not, we can move on to Kadam. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think you posted it directly in the Discord. Here we go. All right. It's called Blue, so I'm guessing it's the Eiffel 65 song. Let's listen. Okay. I heard that kind of like high harpsichord sound starting to come in with the melody. And I think you basically had the chords right. Let's listen to it one more time. Cool. Yeah, do you want to? I spent the inverse amount of time Cameron did. I feel you. I think the nice thing about that melody is that it kind of traces out the chord progressions. It like the lead sort of does an arpeggiated version of the chord progression. So, and that can be a really simple, straightforward technique for creating your own melodies. You can just take the notes that are in the chord that you're playing and then do them in a rhythmic fashion. And then maybe add some like other sort of accent notes or, hold one note longer than the others or make a couple quick notes. But that could be, a simple way to get a melody down. It could even be like a starting point for a melody and then you go and modify from there. Let's see, Kadam says, I wanted to get some variation in the chord versus the solo lead, but struggled to make chords that sounded good. I think I just don't like the vital synth I picked. You did use kind of like a plucky sort of chord sound, which will, the fact that it has that transient at the beginning does kind of make it pop out more. One of the canonical examples for me is the song "Superstitious" by Stevie Wonder. It's got that like clavichord comping figure at the beginning, and even though the clavichord is the background element there, it is because it has its own rhythm and groove. It becomes something interesting that you might want to listen to. And I liked too how in the chords you actually had the melody going. I'll play it one more time just to show it. Kind of a little bit. You had a little bit of the rhythm going there. That could be a nice way to get more ideas out of your melody too. Like if you have a really memorable melody, you can take like a short 2-note rhythmic fragment of that melody and then use that as kind of like a rhythmic theme that is played in other parts of your track. Like you might have a couple drum hits that follow that rhythm, or you might have like a couple chord stabs that follow that rhythm as well. And that kind of helps drill in the main idea or the hook into your listener's mind, or maybe earlier in the track you play pulling out the theme. Let's see. Well, I will show an example in the sort of a partial example in when we get into the build-up, when we talk about teasing the main theme of the track in the build-up. But let's see. In terms of pulling a rhythm out of the theme, if it's like I'm blue, da 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 da, you might take that da 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 bit and like do like a tom fill with that pattern, or maybe like a chord thing that's like da da da, or like another kind of background element that reinforces the chord. Or, you could take kind of the most important notes in the melody and add extra layers just under those important notes, like the ones that are, on the key, on the main beats in a measure. But that can also add some dynamics and some extra interests. So, take like a short, 2, 3, 4 note fragment, look at the rhythm there, and then apply that rhythm to other elements in your track. Trying to think of another good example offhand. I have an example in one of my own tracks. Let's see. I'm not. I think it's gonna take too long for me to show it this time, but the way I approach music, like anytime you have like a clear main theme, and you can take out little pieces of that and then reuse them in other parts of your track or in other elements in your track, that helps create that that sense of cohesion. We'd love to come back to it later if we would have time. Sure. Because I think one thing EDM does really well at is distilling a key idea and then like hitting you with it from every angle 100 times, so it just like really sticks in your head and gets you hooked. So the more you can emphasize that idea in other parts of your track, the more overall coherent it'll sound. But anyway, looking forward to hearing the rest of your track if you want to keep going forward with the remix. But why don't we move on? Let's check the Discord real quick. Why don't we move on to the last track today, which is Erin's. I know she's not here today, but let's hear what she produced. Here we go. Cute. So I love how the intro builds the energy into the track. Right, we start off with just like some simple chords and the melody on top. No bass, no drums or anything. Start simple. Then we add the bass, kind of like doing a sort of rolling bass line. Kind of a plucked sound. And then I liked the shift. It sounded to me like when the more of the energy came in around this part, the bass notes became kind of long and held. And that's another good way of creating progression in your track, like going from either long held bass notes to more like plucky rolling type of bass notes, or the other way around. When the bass notes are long and held, it kind of creates this opened, expansive, epic sort of tone, whereas when the bass notes are more like rolling and plucked really fast, it kind of creates a charging ahead sort of sound. So going between those can create like a really epic shift in the listener, especially if you combine that with changing up the drum pattern so it's also more sparse. Let's see. I thought the clap sound was good, and I liked the idea of like only playing it every other time. For most of this part, I think it would be, my ear was waiting for the clap to start coming in more frequently, every on the 2 and the 4. But leaving it, only doing it half the time to start, I think it is a fine choice. And then I think even more effective would be to then add it in on every 2 and 4 later in the track. just to create that sense of progression. Good tone choices too. Another, starting off with this kind of cute, plucky sort of tone palette here in the beginning, before moving to something more like aggressive. I think that's a good sort of general idea one can apply. Like, to create a contrast in terms of the the tones that you've chosen. Like another way that manifests itself is if you're like remixing a track from like the 70s or something. It'll have like a lower fidelity production quality or maybe more organic. And then when the drop hits, you can bring in all the modern electronic synths. So creating that like time era-based transition element of your sound palette is really effective for creating a nice contrast there. And I think you hear this a lot too in like heavy dubstep, where they'll like throw in these random little like dinky little sounds to contrast with the like heavy hard hitting bass. Or if we think about like 90s dance pop songs where they have like a epic female vocal lead and then they have like a guy rapping on a later verse, that sort of Beauty and the Beast contrast, as I like to call it, also creates a lot of like polarity in your track and gives it a sort of wide spectrum feel to it. Let's see. I'll just play since it was only 1 minute long. Let me just play it again. See if I have any other commentary here. Cool. Yeah, I like the synths that Aaron brought in around here. Adding a little bit more high frequency, a little bit more grit of a tone, and then pulling all those other elements away, leading into the next drop. And I think too for this last bit, we could have really like stepped up the energy with some like faster hi-hats or other kind of like high frequency percussion elements. Maybe like a sizzling hi-hat to give it more energy. And also some nice drum fills here and there. And in general, great transcription of the melody and chord progression. That whole part, nothing to complain about. So, good job, Erin, wherever you are. I think she said she's at a concert. So, any other questions? Also, if any, I'll show the warping of the vocal here in a second. But if anyone has any other random music production questions, if you want me to demonstrate something, I know Academy wanted to see how we can put effects on a single element on a drum rack. Before we get into the main lesson about buildups, if y'all have any random questions I can demonstrate real quick, just drop them in the chat. But let's load up Ableton here. All right, 99 beats per minute. now that's stuck in my head. All right. So let me Just make sure that the audio is coming through. All right, so we're bringing the vocals. So yeah, so I looked it up. It said it's at 99 beats per minute. So I would, click on the vocal, click warp, and you want to set this BPM field here. You want to set it to the BPM of the original song. So now it'll know, oh, this is 99 beats per minute. I'm going to warp it, up to 120, or I think in Cameron's case he had it at 135. And then let's see, where does this start? Maybe here?
Something chronic, bit demonic of them on the late shift. Selling tonic, stupid promise, something like a.
If I put it at 99, it should sound like normal again, or like it does in the original.
Something chronic, bit demonic of them on the late shift.
I think it actually sounds really good at the faster tempo, I think. Then we add a kick underneath. Sure, this is good. I'm just kind of guessing as to how the rhythm of this goes because I'm not super familiar, but probably something like this, I think. Put it 4x4, something like that.
Something chronic, bit demonic.
Oh, I think it's probably more like this, I think.
Something chronic.
Something. Okay, so it's probably, maybe put it right there.
Something chronic.
Oh no, sorry, she's saying something like that.
Something chronic, bit demonic of them on the late shift.
Okay, I see why you had to slide it around a little bit and quantize it. It was a little tricky. Late shift. Maybe slide it like that.
Something chronic, bit demonic of them on the.
Oh, okay, so this is probably a good note to line it up with. All right.
Something chronic, bit demonic of them on the late shift.
Late shift.
Selling tonic.
Yeah. Okay. So if you can't line it up with the first note in the melody, you can also look for other like really obvious points where, okay, this should land right on the beat. So, and then now when we slow it down to 99, it'll still sound good. Check it out.
Something chronic, bit demonic of them on the late shift.
And then don't really need any quantization at this point because it's already been warped perfectly. So yeah, quantizing might be more useful when you're taking like a spoken word sample that's not from a song and it's kind of all over the map rhythmically, and you want to tighten it up a little bit. Or if you just really want that like robotic sound, which could be good for techno, you could quantize the rhythm and then like put a vocoder on it to make it sound really robotic. That could be fun. Cool. So yeah, so that's how I would approach bringing in a vocal like this into my track. And to answer a question about like putting effects on individual drum rack pads. So we'll pull up drum rack. Put it on here. So yeah, if we just take that same kick and we put it here. So the trick is to take your effect, I don't know, let's say it's a saturator. Take your effect and put it like in here, right next to the simpler that pops up, and you'll see that it's only on that kick pattern. And that's good too if maybe you want to apply like a high pass EQ onto one of your samples. Some of that's already built in. Like if you click on the controls for this kick, you can see that it has a filter built into it. So I wouldn't normally do this with a kick, but if you were trying to remove some low frequency noise from a sample, you could switch this filter here to high pass mode. And this is under the controls section. So, filter it out like this. So that's a useful, filter that's built into Simpler that you can use. You don't have to bring in any external effects. So yeah, individual effects on drum racks. That's how on drum rack pads. That's how you do it. Okay. Cool. So let's get into. Yeah. So let's get into. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Cameron, try that technique, and would love to hear how that changes things up if it makes it a lot easier. Post back if you make an update. All right, so let's get into the concept of buildups. So this is kind of our first foray into song structure. That's not the drop where we've been focusing on for the last several sessions. So now we're going to actually start getting into what kind of elements would go into creating a full song with like an ebb and a flow to it, a narrative arc, a sense of progression, etc. And for me, a build-up and a drop is like the minimum amount of material you would need to play a song in a DJ set, let's say, because you would use the build-up to transition from the previous song and then the drop into your song. So if you get into DJing and you want to like throw one of your own remixes in there, but you don't have a ton of time to spend on making a remix, you can literally just make like build up and drop and maybe like a little outro beat to make the transition to the next song easier. But or if you're like posting a song on social media, let's say, or doing a remix, you can make just the build up and the drop. And this too is a good way to explore creating ideas, because maybe you have an idea for a song, but you're not sure if you want to invest the hours needed to create an entire track. You can create like a little demo with just like the build up and then the drop, and the build up just helps draw the listener in, helps hype them up, and then when the drop hits, they're ready for it and they're yearning for it. Let's see, I did play the book sample from last week in a set last week. Oh, awesome. It was fun, but it took a lot of looping and EQ to build something mixing out of it. Okay. Fair point, Cadam. Yeah, it can certainly be tricky, but the more times you do it, the easier it'll get. So I'm gonna open the track that I started last week, kind of like this Charlie XCX inspired. Well, I haven't even added a melody here, so it's not a remix of anything. But I'll make it a remix of Poker Face by Lady Gaga, because for this example, I do want a melody to show some of the key ideas for making a build-up. Let me get Charlie out of here. So, as I mentioned earlier in the, let's see. More work than just, that the build and drop together is more work than just the drop. Yeah, I mean, you could probably make a build up out of just like taking the first measure of the drop, maybe applying some filters and effects to it. Hopefully this session will give you all some ideas for how you might do that. Because in theory, with the build up, you're not necessarily creating a lot of completely new material. You're just you're taking a couple elements from your song, from your idea, and then transitioning between them, and then adding some additional effects and drum rolls and risers and so on to make the energy progress upwards. So a very common amount of time for a build-up is 8 measures. Just tends to feel right. You can make longer ones, and there are some genres like trance where like most of the track seems to be build up, or you can have 32, 64 bar buildups. let's see. Okay, is it possible to send the Ableton file if you're starting from last week's class? Let me send the stems because I can't send the file because, or I can't send the project file because not everyone has the same version of Ableton. But let me at least share the stems here. So, and this we'll do this later in the 8th session when we do some collaboration. But I'll just show y'all now how to do this. So, the stems of a track are the individual channels that make up a track. So you would have the overall song broken down, in this case, into the pad and the 808 and the clap. And I'm going to go File, and then I'm going to go Export Audio Video. Actually, first I'm going to select the section that I want to export. So I'm just going to export these 4 measures. So File, Export Audio Video. And then we've been saying rendered track main, so it's going to just output the main track. But if you switch this to all individual tracks, it'll export, it'll export all the individual tracks as separate WAV files. And then if you're collaborating with someone who doesn't have Ableton, they can load those stems into their DAW of choice, Fruity Loops, Logic, whatever it is, and then they can continue building off of your work. The downside, of course, is they won't have all your original synths. So anything you want to export, you want to make sure that it's in its final version of how you like it before you send it over, because they will have less flexibility in terms of making edits afterwards. But anyway, so I selected the amount of time I want to export. I went File, Export, and then I changed this top bit to all individual tracks. Then I'm going to export. Yep, I'll export them here. You'll see that it's done it. So then, so I kind of dumped them all in here, but you can see, it's got a track for, my reference with Charlie XCX. It's got a track for the 808. Has tracks for the sends. So, these little sliders here that we've been using to add some reverb and delay to our tracks, it exports those as their own tracks, and then clap and pad. And then it does export the overall track as well. But for y'all, we just need the pad and the clap and 808. So I'm going to copy those into the Discord. Actually, let me zip them up first. Well, actually, what's gonna? Oh, okay. No, I'll just post them as one message. Okay. So now, if you download each of these WAV files, I'll show you how to import them into a new project. So I'm going to go File, New Set. And then I'm going to delete all these tracks. Tempo's at 120. That's what my project was at, so that's good. And then this might be slightly different on Mac versus Windows, but if you select all 3 of the files in your Explorer, you click and drag them in, and you hold Control, or on Mac it's probably Command. You'll see it changes from like one line here to having them all stacked together. So if I don't have Control held down, it's just going to import them like right next to each other, which is not what we want. We want them on their own separate tracks. So I'm going to drag them in, hold down Control, and now it's going to put them all on their own track. And if we play it back, it should sound more or less like the original. Let's hear. Sorry. Interestingly, this note here is a lot louder. Oh, sorry. have to go into the original project to see why this transient was a bit louder. But in any case, so we're starting with that. Did anyone has everyone been able to, how did you put those on separate tracks? So you have to, I think if you're on Mac, Chica, so I believe you have to hold down Command while you're dragging the WAV files from Finder into Ableton. So for me on Windows, I've got the 3 WAV files here in Explorer, and I've got them all selected. I click and drag them in, and I hold down Control, and you can see it when I press Control. It switches how the 3 files are laid out. So I hold down Control, and then when I drop them in there, it spreads them out onto different tracks. And then you also asked, will the stems keep whatever plugins you used? So they will not. So what happened here was Ableton rendered all the tracks to audio, and then it exported them. So if you look at how it was in the original project, you see I've got the pad and the 808 are both MIDI tracks. The clap is audio, so that one is going to be the same. But that is one of the challenges or downsides of exporting as individual rendered WAV files or exporting as stems, is that you're going to lose the synths that were that were in place to generate the sounds. I mean, it's going to have all the effects that you put on it baked into the WAV file, the WAV files that get exported, but you won't be able to go back and say, tweak the sound of the 808, or tweak the synth parameters of the 808 or the pad or whatever. That's why I suggest doing this like closer to the end of the production, or get whatever you're exporting to the point where you like it, and then export it to share with your friend who you're working with, or. But if you do both have Ableton and you have the same version of Ableton, then sharing the project file will preserve everything. Again, assuming you also have the same plugins, because like if I'm using Vital here for the pad, if my friend doesn't have Vital, then it's just going to show like it's going to say it can't find the plugin, and then you're going to not have any sound. So this is part of the reason why people want a DAW that has version control, like you would with computer code on Git, let's say. But that's a really challenging technical task. So, but cool. So, so yeah, I'm gonna work in the original project here. It's not really gonna matter too much until we, in terms of what is going on here for the drop, at least for this first part. So, and I'm actually gonna take the tempo up a little bit just so when I play back the examples, it doesn't take quite as long. So, all right. So let's look at some common elements that go into a buildup. So probably the most classic, well-established idea is a snare roll. So you take a snare sample, you play it 4 to the floor for 4 measures, then you double the tempo, so you're playing at 8, you play it 8th notes for 2 measures, and then you double it once again, you're playing 16th notes for 1 measure, and then you throw in some kind of pre-drop vocal. So let's grab a snare sample. I won't, whichever one I pick, I'll drop it in the chat. And for your choice of sample here will depend heavily on like the vibe of the track you're going for. Like if you're doing a really hard-hitting, bass house track, maybe you want a really punchy snare with a sharp transient that hits hard. If you're doing like a more chilled out prog house kind of track, maybe you want to use like a lighter, softer sort of snare. But I'm just going to pick one that works well enough. Not that. I don't want all that like high-end metallic pan sort of sound in there. That one sounds too much like a clap. Okay, this one's pretty good. Not that. Yeah, okay, let's go with this one. So I'll put that in the Discord. You want to follow along. All right, so I'm going to right click up here and annotate that here's the buildup. And I'm going to add a new MIDI track. And I'm going to create a MIDI clip that's 8 measures long from 9 to 17, Control-Shift-M. And then I'm going to bring that snare sample here, drop instrument here. And then I'm going to switch my grid to quarter notes. And then I want C3, right, because that's the main note that, or that's the note that will play the simpler at its home pitch. So I'm going to do 4 measures of quarter notes. I'm also going to make sure the volume is all the way up. So 4 measures of quarter notes, and then 2 measures of eighth notes. So let's, so here's a trick. I'm going to select these quarter notes, duplicate them. I'm going to change the grid to 1/8, and then I'm going to grab the end of them and slide them back so that they're all eighth notes. And then I'm going to duplicate those, and I'm going to use the left arrow to slide them over until they, line up in the gaps there. And I might take the volume of these like in between eighth note hits down a little bit, just so you get a little bit of dynamics, so it's not completely robotic. And then I'll duplicate that one more time. And then I want to do one more measure of 16th notes. So same technique, duplicate, change the grid to 1/16, make it half as long, duplicate that, and then slide it over like so. And then maybe I'll bring the volumes down on those a little bit. And, you may not want this exact volume shape. This is just for demonstration purposes, but you may be wondering why we don't have anything here in the last measure. That's how the pre-drop vocal would go. If you want like a hype sample, like everybody get on the floor or whatever, or maybe you would put a drum fill here, or you put some other elements. This is kind of like one last moment of quasi-silence before the drop. So it's nice to leave. It can be really effective to leave a gap in between two adjoining sections in your track to create a little bit of a pullback before blasting forward. So that's kind of what this gap is. And if you go on Splice, you'll see a lot of riser type of sounds or loops that last 7 measures long, and that's the reason why we want to leave this nice gap here to create extra anticipation right before the drop. So is everyone able to get, okay, so if you do this right, I'm just going to start it, well, I'll start at the beginning. I won't play this all the way through every time, but just so y'all get the sense of what it's going to sound like. Right? Cool. So this is going to be like the foundation of our buildup. Kind of boring right now, right? Because it's just yeah, we have a little bit of dynamics here with the velocity, but it's also kind of predictable. Like where this is going. You kind of want a little bit more energy in here, and we'll start adding some other elements. But was everyone able to program this? Kind of basic pattern here. 4 measures of quarter notes, 2 measures of eighth notes, one measure of 16th notes. Actually, I wonder if I can even copy that into here. No, I can't. Wonder if I can export this. There we go. Export MIDI clip. Let's see. Snare roll 7 measures .MIDI. So if you want, you can literally drop this MIDI file in to your track and pick a sample you like, and you'll have this snare roll already ready for you. And I'll demonstrate that here real quick. So if I were to create a new MIDI track, I can just drag this MIDI file in here. I would say don't import the tempo and time signature data because I wanted to use the tempo and time signature from my project. So I'm going to say no. And here it is. Now I can add, whatever other sample I might want to use for this instead. And in general, I would also, like for standard building blocks like this, I would suggest you start building up your own library because then you won't have to like reprogram this every time. So I can go to user. I can actually, I think I should be able to save and. Okay, well, can't save it, but I can drag. I can click and drag the MIDI clip into the user library, and it will put it at like a top level folder, but snare roll 7 measures 1. Maybe I would put this in a new folder like MIDI patterns, something like this. So now I can, when I'm building my next track, I don't have to type all this stuff out again. I can just use my pre-existing snare roll. So workflow idea, save some time, keep it pushing. All right. So one thing that's really popular in modern styles of dance music is to have a second snare that is, has a bit of a different tone. Maybe it's a little smaller, like the duration's not as long, or it's like softer, or it has other, it's slightly different timbre. And it's going to start playing, it's just going to play 16th notes all the way through. So this is going to give us kind of like a little bit more energy in the build-up right from the beginning, while the main snare here kind of takes care of like creating that rhythmic sense of progression. So snare roll main. So I'm going to grab another snare here. I'm going to pick like a kind of a smaller one, like I said. So let's look for snare. Yeah, let's go with this. Let's go with this box slap one. Why not? So I'm gonna. Oh wait, sorry. I need to pick. I want to pick one that's not built into Ableton, so I can actually share it with y'all. I don't want that one's got too much. That one's got too much wood hit in it. Yeah, let's go with this one. All right. So here is the second snare we're going to use. Okay. And let's create a new MIDI clip again. And then same eight measures MIDI clip. And this time we're just going to go straight 16ths all the way across. Maybe we'll add some dynamics here as well. So we'll make the first one louder, second one softer, third one in between, right there. So it looks kind of like that. And now we can just paste it all the way across. Cool. And now we've got this like alternative snare may have to adjust the volume, but together we get this kind of sound. Oops, sorry, I was muted there. I just forgot to drag the second snare into the new channel. So let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, so maybe you hear how that gives us a little bit more energy right from the get-go. Let's see, is there a way to draw those in more fluidly than clicking on everyone, the volume per MIDI note? Yeah, if you hold down, if you press the B and you switch to the pencil tool, you can like click and drag and draw whatever sort of line you want. There also, let's see, there is also a way to draw like a line. Is it Control? Okay, yeah. If you hold down Control, probably Command on Mac, then you can draw like a straight line. So you could have it. It'll automatically make all of your velocities follow that line. So if you wanted it to like gradually get louder, you could do it that way. Something like that. I don't know why it's not catching this first one here, but so if you wanted to create a volume progression in MIDI, you could do it that way. And that's another way to add more of that rising sensation to your buildup as well. You create, make the volume of your snare roll increase over time, so it sounds like it's starting off from far away, and it sounds like it's getting closer. Let's look at another idea. So right now the snare is kind of staying on one pitch the whole time, and in tradition, rock music or any genre of music that uses acoustic instruments, you can't really change the pitch of a drum over time. You can, in some cases, you can kind of do it like by physically pressing on the drum head, but it's not really the way you typically would play it. But since we're on a computer, we can change the pitch of our samples as much as we like. So another really effective way to add more kind of upward curve to your snare roll, we'll go into this envelope section here of the MIDI clip. So I have the MIDI clip selected. I click into envelopes here, and then down here it says you should have pitch bend selected by default, but if you don't, you want to go into MIDI control here and then select pitch bend. Now, a lot of these are, MIDI has 128 different parameters you can adjust. A lot of them are unassigned, or they're reserved for, if the manufacturer of a specific synth wants to do something unique to that synth, they can use one of these, undefined MIDI notes. But all of them, every synth under the sun responds to pitch bend. So we're gonna. I like to usually keep the first note at its original pitch, but we'll create like an upward sloping line, kind of like how we've done in the past with automation. So we'll add like a note here. We'll add a note here, and then we'll add a note here at the end, and then we'll click and drag it all the way up. So first note is going to be at its original pitch. The last note is going to be as high as the pitch bend is set. In this case, simpler, the pitch bend range is plus or minus 5 semitones, half steps. You can change that if you want. I think 5 is probably fine for now. We don't want like a super dramatic change in pitch here. just a little bit to give it a little bit of extra smile, let's say. So now with that, now that I have this pitch envelope here, I'll mute the other channel just so you can hear how the pitch bend affected it. But give this a listen. Cool. Yeah. So now we got that upward rise in pitch, and we got our original snare here. So now a lot of we've got like more elements to create a dramatic rise. Let's also show let's show how you can add some filter automation to also create more upward motion. So especially with this 16th note snare, that can start to sound a little machine gun like or a little robotic. But a really effective thing you can do is put a low pass filter on it and then gradually increase the filter cutoff so that you get more high frequencies over time, and it starts off small and then gets bigger. So we're going to grab an effect called auto filter. Just do a search for it. It's built in. You could also use EQ for this if you like. Auto filter is easy enough though. So I'm going to put it after my simpler for my alternative snare, the snare that's got the 16th notes. And then, you have to adjust this to taste, but I'm going to put it down, in the 600 range. And then just as in the past when we've automated the gain on the utility, we're going to right-click on the filter frequency here, click Show Automation, and then we're going to put a node here at the beginning, put a node here at the end, and we'll drag that to the top so it will kind of gradually open up over time. And I'm also going to, I showed this in the last class as well, but I'm going to, instead of doing like a straight line, I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to make the curve bend up a little bit because audio is a logarithmic scale, or I guess exponential. Anyway, every time you double the frequency, you go up by 1 octave. Sometimes a linear curve can get it can move you too fast, too quickly through the spectrum of values you want to take on. So I often like to make the line curve up a little bit like this, concave. So hold down Alt on that curve and bend it down. So if you do that, you should get this kind of sound. Probably wouldn't bend it up, or probably keep it a little bit closer to linear, but you get the picture. You heard how it start off as let's see. You start off quieter, less high frequencies, and then you gradually open up. Is there a way to toggle the automation layer? Yes, if you press the A key, and you got to make sure not to have the keyboard turned on, but if you press A, it will switch between automation view and nothing. The Mac alternative to Alt. Thank you, Amal. Cool. So just to kind of finalize this point about different drum sounds starting off slowly and then gradually getting faster and faster. You can also do the same kind of idea with a kick drum. So, and this will just add even more like juice, power, beef, etc. to your buildup. So I'm going to grab a kick sample. You could use the same one from your drop. I don't actually have a kick in this drop because I was trying to copy Charlie XCX. But let's pick a kick sample, and we're going to have it. We're not going to play it as frequently as the snare. Maybe we'll play it like 1/4 as frequently. But let's grab a kick. Let's see. Sure, this is fine. So I'll paste that into the Discord. That's not. Here, let's see. Bend automation curve Ableton Mac. Hold down the Option key. Oh yeah, you don't want the pencil tool selected. You're going to want to make sure you have the arrow key selected. Yeah, undo all that. If you hold down Alt with the pencil tool, you can draw an unquantized automation curve. So that could be kind of cool if you want like a really organic sort of automation curve. Hold down Alt with the pencil tool, but we just want the arrow tool selected, and then hopefully Alt works for you. Turn it off, it's still not working. Just lifts the entire line strip. Oh, maybe you have it selected. Let's see. Turn it off, it's still not working. It just lifts the entire line straight up. Did you put in these two nodes like this? And then let's see. Select automation curve. Let's see. If I hold down Shift, I can move the entire curve. I can move the entire selected curve up and down. That's not what we're trying to do here. So make sure you're not holding Shift. Oh. All right. Well, let's. Maybe I can show you in person next week potentially. But let's show let's show how adding a kick drum to the build up can create even more drama and excitement. So I pasted the kick sample in the Discord here. So let's create a new MIDI channel. Take the kick drum, put it in the MIDI channel. Ooh, it's got some stereo information, it looks like. Interesting. Okay, and we'll again create an 8-bar MIDI clip. This time I'll put it on quarter notes. Actually, maybe we might need to go all the way to 8. But let's start with quarter notes just so it's a little bit more visible. So I'm going to do quarter note on the first beat. And let's see. I think I'll do it like just a quarter note on the first beat of each of the first 4 measures, and then I'll double the frequency, so kick drum every other quarter note for the next 2, and then for the last measure here, I'll do quarter notes on every beat. Oh, let me make all the velocities the same. So you see how it's like the same idea of doubling the frequency of each note while cutting in half the duration for how long we play notes at that speed. So together we get this. Yeah, Ableton and dealing with audio driver nonsense can be kind of frustrating. Stuff will just randomly crash at times. It used to be a lot worse, so we have come a long way, baby. But kudos to you for sticking with it. Cool. So let's start. Got about half an hour left. Let's look at some other elements we can add to this. So, I mentioned that the buildup is often a transitional section. Before the buildup over here, we might have like a verse, lyrics from a song, whatever, and then the buildup, and then the drop. So we want to begin the buildup by releasing some of the tension that we've established in the verse or intro part of our song. And a common way to do that is with an element that's often called a downer. It's like the opposite of a riser. It takes energy from the high frequencies and brings them into the low frequencies. So to do that, we're going to use a really common sound for that. We're going to take some white noise, and then we're going to apply a filter automation to it. And that's going to kind of create this release sort of sound. So this will probably be the easiest sound we look at in Vital. So create a new MIDI track, and then load up Vital. And then we could do this automation within Vital for simplicity, so we don't have to spend a lot of time like messing with knobs here. We're going to do it in Ableton, but I just want you to press 2 buttons. First button is this one up here. We want to turn the first oscillator off, right? So it's off. And we want to turn the sample oscillator on. So we just have white noise. So that's it. And it should sound like this. Beautiful, right? So call this noise downer. And I'll set this up and then I'll do it again so y'all can see. So for this part, we're just going to make it 4 measures. I'm just going to have it kind of do this descending figure over 4 measures. So select 4 measures here. Control-Shift-M to create a new MIDI note. For noise, the key of the sound doesn't tend to matter. So I'm just going to do it on C3 for consistency, but in general, white noise doesn't really have a pitch. So we'll put in a note. We're going to drag it out all the way to the end of our clip. So we have like long held white noise. And then I'm going to put auto filter on this one as well. So same as what we just did on that other snare roll, but put an auto filter right after Vital. And this time we're going to switch it to band pass mode. So that's the one that looks like a frown here. Band pass means let the frequencies in this band, in this range, pass through and filter out everything else. It's kind of like a combination of a low pass and a high pass filter. So we just get this band here in the middle. And we're basically just going to sweep it all the way down over the course of these 4 measures. So automation, and you can change the start and end position to taste depending on like how much different frequencies you want at different times. But do something like this, and we also want to make the sound fade out over time too. We don't want it to be like full volume all the way down here. We want it to kind of like whisper off into the distance. So I'm also going to automate the gain on the track so it gets quieter over time. So if you don't already have a utility on your track, grab a utility, put it on your channel. By the way, I'll show in a second how to set up your track so by default they always have EQ and utility on them. But in any case, put a utility on your channel, and then we're going to right click on the gain, show automation, and then we're going to bring that from starting point at 0. We're going to bring it pretty much all the way down if we like. And I'm going to have it this time. I'm going to bend it up so it gradually gets quieter over time, but not in a linear fashion. So if you do that right, you should get a sound like this. Right, pretty simple. But you can hear how like it's kind of letting some steam off, letting the air out. And if let's see, I might need to make that a little bit louder. So I'm gonna turn it up in Vital here. Just turn it all the way up. But we combine that with the other elements, we get this kind of idea. Let me unmute. You get the rest. So that's like a really simple like downer noise you can make, and there's lots of variations you can do here. You can make it pan around. So I could put I could take this LFO and I could put it on the pan knob here in Vital. Actually, let's show another effect in Ableton here. It's called auto filter. Or sorry, it's called auto pan. So auto pan. So we're gonna use this to make the sound kind of bounce up and down. I'll first show to have it like pan left and right, but then I'll show how to make it do just the volume. So we're gonna take auto pan here, our effect. In this case, you could put it before or after the auto filter. It doesn't really matter. And then we're going to change the rate to be synced to our tempo. So instead of having it be HZ, hertz here, we're going to switch it to the note. And then I'm going to switch this to quarter notes to change the rate knob to 1/4. And then by default, if I turn the amount up, you can kind of see how the blue and orange curves are offset. So this is going to make the sound pan from left to right, because when the left channel is high, the right channel is low. So all the volume is going to be in one ear, and then it will cross over, and then the opposite channel will be high, and the original channel will be low. So it'll all be coming from one side. It will sound like it's over here, and it will do this back and forth. I think the stream is in stereo, so not seeing auto pan. Maybe it doesn't come with live light. Let's see. Ableton Live Light Auto Pan. Let's see. Let's see, auto effects, filter to. Yeah, okay. I guess light doesn't have auto pan on it. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. You can also create that same effect with the utility. So we could we could do an automation on the balance to make it pan left and right. We can do an automation on the gain to make it bounce up and down in terms of volume. You could also add an LFO in vital onto the pan or the level if you want. If you go that route, then let me turn off auto pan here. If you go that route, you want to make sure your LFO is in trigger mode so that it starts when you play the note. And then I want quarter notes, so I'll change this to 1/4. And then I'm going to put this on the level param of the white noise. And this way it's going to kind of bounce up and down in volume in line with the shape. So maybe I'll bend these curves up here a little bit. So doing it in vital, that sounds like this. All right, you hear how it kind of like bounces a bit more, gives it a bit more of an interesting flavor. And if you do it with, I'm going to take that off and I'm going to use the auto pan now. So I'll turn this back up. So if we have the auto pan, if we do the auto pan version, if you want the volume to go up and down, you're going to want to push the phase to 360. And that synchronizes the left and right channels so that they both go up and down in volume at the same time. You're also, for this one, I would put the offset at 180. That way it'll start off quiet and then lift up rather than starting high and coming down. You might like that effect too, but for this, if you imagine there was a kick drum hitting every quarter note here, you'd want the noise to duck out of the way of the kick. So we'd want it to start off quiet and then get louder. You can also you don't have to do the full 100% amount. You could have it bounce just a little bit, but still maintain most of its volume all the way through. So that sounds like this. Or we can contextualize it with the rest of the build-up elements here. Oops, sorry. Thank you. All right. You can also. Yep. Sorry. Yeah, I have to toggle the mic. Oh yeah. So then we contextualize with the rest of the elements. Sorry, what I'm doing here now is I'm just adding a crash symbol at the beginning of the build-up to help basically start the build-up off. Like you can imagine the intro coming to a conclusion. We build up to tension. The crash symbol helps kind of emphasize the start of the build-up and helps add to that release of tension. So we'll use this. We can use this crash symbol. I'll paste it into the Discord here. And we're just going to put that at the beginning of our, create a new audio track, and then put that crash symbol right at the beginning here. And this works nicely with the downer noise element because it creates like a kind of crash to fill in the gap here at the beginning where we have the a little bit less of the noise going on. So that sounds like this. You can kind of hear how the crash symbol blends smoothly into the noise downer. So they work really well together. Oh, and by the way, we might as well add a noise riser going up. And you wouldn't always want to like just straight up reuse the same sounds for the downer and the up, the riser, just to create a little bit more interest in your track. But just to show you how easy it can be, let's duplicate the noise downer track, and then we'll slide the MIDI clip over, and then we'll switch to the automation view. We'll move the auto filter in the opposite direction, so we can just take this and slide it over here, and we'll take the utility gain and put it in the other direction, something like that. And now we have a nice rising element taking us to the end of the buildup. It was a little quiet, but yeah, I think you get the picture. Maybe we would start the auto filter a little bit higher up, something like that. But one thing I definitely want to show y'all before we end the section is this idea of teasing the melody. So let's say I'm making a remix of Poker Face, right? The drop goes, can't read my, no, he can't read my poker face. It's got that melody, right? A really common technique is to try to create this sense of like pre-nostalgia in the listener's mind by giving them a little fragment of what you're gonna, or like a smaller version of what you're gonna be focusing on in the drop. So, and one common way to do this is to take like the first 2, 3, 4 notes of the main theme and like repeat them in ever increasing rhythm, speed of rhythm throughout the buildup. And it will also show some other effects automation you can do to make it sound like the melody is like far off in the distance, and then it gradually comes closer and closer, and then for the drop, it comes in full force. So let me, I'm just going to quickly program the melody for Poker Face. So I'm going to get Vital. Sorry, I want a new MIDI track. So I'll take Vital, put it in here. I'm just going to make a really simple lead sound. Triangle wave, put it in mono, a little bit of low pass filter. Oops. And a little bit of attack. All right, perfect. So let's see, we're in G minor. Yeah, okay, so. All right, so those are my notes. All right, kind of messed that up, but let's fix that. By the way, you can quantize MIDI notes as well, right? So, I played this in. I was a little bit sloppy with some of the notes. If I want to tighten up the timing, I can select them all and press Control-Shift-U. It's going to quantize to the grid by default, by the way. And I have it on 16th notes, so it's going to quantize to 16th notes. So Control-Shift-U. Let's get the end times as well. Perfect. Da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na. Let's see what that sounds like. Let's see. Da-na-na, da-na-na. Dun, dun, dun. Something like that. And I need it to be this whole measure here. Okay, it's not exactly right, but I just need these first 3 notes here, right? So I'm gonna I'm going to play these notes in a certain rhythmic pattern during the build-up, and I'm going to kind of gradually speed it up and shorten it. And I'm also going to add some reverb and delay automation and some panning automation to make it sound like it's gradually getting closer to us. So I just want these first 3 notes. So I'll copy the MIDI clip here. Actually, let me give you all this MIDI clip so we're on the same page here. And I'll get it. Let me program it so it's correct. Da-na-na, da-na-na, da, 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 down to. Yep, and then. Da-da, dun, dun. Something like that. I think that should be right. Almost. Da, okay, there we go. All right. Export MIDI clip. Lady Gaga poker face. All right, so if you take this MIDI clip and put it on, whatever lead sound you want from Vital. I just chose a simple triangle wave. In fact, might as well just give you all that preset as well. So let's see. Triangle lead 01. Browse presets. Okay. File location. All right, so you can load that simple preset into Vital if you want. Just put it in your the presets folder where you installed Vital. Sounds like something I would play on the train in Japanese. Oh, sorry. Anmal asked, would this be a good place to use sidechaining? Yeah, you could sidechain the noise to, let's say, the snare, so it ducks out of the way. Definitely an idea to give it some rhythm. Right. Okay, so if we have this lead idea, so I just want to play the first 3 notes a few different times, right? So I'll copy this clip here. I'll put it on the start of the build-up here. So I want it to go da-na-na, 2, 3, 4. Da-na-na, 2, 3, 4. Da-na-na, 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 dun, dun, dun. Right, so kind of gradually increasing the speed and simplifying it so that then when we hear the full thing, we're like, oh, yes, this is what I was waiting for. So, da-na-na. Da-na-na. Da-na. I think every 2 measures will be good to start with. So, da-na-na, 2, 3, 4. Da-na-na, 2, 3. And then we'll speed it up here. So, da-na-na, 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 dun, 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 dun. I think that should work. So just to see where we're at thus far, demonstrate that. Yeah, that's more or less correct. Maybe we want to do dun 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 dun. But hopefully you get the idea here. Like I'm taking a small fragment of the melody that starts it off, is memorable. I'm applying the same idea of doubling the frequency every and shortening the duration by half each time. And now let's add a little bit more sauce on it to make it sound like it's coming from far away and then getting closer, because that's also very emblematic of buildups. So on our lead channel, let's grab a reverb, and we'll put it afterwards. Oh wait, sorry. Before we do this, let me just show y'all how to add utility and EQ as a default. So if you have a new, let's say, audio track, and you didn't have these on already, and it just looked blank, you could grab an EQ or whatever plugins you like, and then grab a utility, and then you can right-click here and say save as default audio track. That's also, by the way, how my tracks all start at -9. So they usually start at 0 for you. Put it at -9. Add whatever effects you want as default. I like utility, at a bare minimum. And then right-click on the audio track and say save as default audio track, and that should save you a good amount of time. Oh, Chica has run out of tracks. Yes. So to get around that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, you're right. So one thing you could do is you could resample some of the tracks. So I guess you would need, once you hit 7 tracks, you need to add a new. So you need to get down to 7 tracks. Once you do that, create a new audio track. And then here in this drop down where it says X'd in, you can change that to resampling. So what this is going to do is it's going to let us record whatever audio is coming out of Ableton. And in the old days of like 4-track tape recorders, this is called bouncing down your tracks to a single track. But if you create a new audio track and then you select resampling from this drop down, you change it from X'd in to resampling. Now when you hit record, it should record, in this case, everything coming out of main. So like basically the whole project. So maybe I'd turn off the lead. Like maybe I just want to record the drum elements here. So put my cursor here at the beginning, arm it for recording, and then hit record. Cool. And then, now that I'm going to trim this bit off here at the end. Now that I have my whole, all the drum elements in my drop on a single channel, now I can delete the previous ones. So, so this does work, and you can use resampling for other use cases too. Like if you want to, you program a synth, you have it play some MIDI, or use some MIDI notes to play the synth. Then maybe you want to bounce it down to audio so you can like chop it up and do some glitchy edits to it, or further post-process it. Resampling is a good tool for that. Usually if you get deeper into production, you start to run into those 8-track, those 16-track limitations, and that's when you upgrade. But resampling can take you pretty far. You just have to be willing to commit to whatever whatever elements you've added here. So I'd say give that a shot if you want to work around the track limitation. All right, so I'll close that. So yeah, let's show some reverb automation here on the on the lead. Re-enable it. All right, so grab a reverb and put it on your lead channel. And then we're going to automate the dry wet. So it's going to start off, pretty wet, maybe even 100% wet. So that's basically just the reverb sort of sound. Maybe I'll turn up the reverb too, so it's extra, the decay time, so it's extra dreamy. This gives it a longer reverb tail. And then I'm just going to gradually automate the dry wet so it becomes more dry over time, and that has the effect of like making it seem like it's coming closer to us. So show automation on the reverb. We'll bring it down, and then so we'll bring it down to like, I don't know, 50% by the end. And then importantly, you want to make sure that your reverb tail is completely gone or you want to like turn the reverb completely off by the time you actually start your drop, because we don't necessarily want any extra reverb bleeding over. So this kind of curve. In fact, I'm gonna have it bend up a little bit so we get that tail for longer. But now you can hear what that sounds like. Sorry, I muted again. Right, so that's one technique you can do with the reverb to make it sound like it's coming from far away and getting closer. Yep, I know. Sorry. In bass music, another variation on this is you might have the sound be heavily filtered at first. So, like you might have it be kind of bandpass filtered the way the same effect that we added here on the noise, but you would apply it to the bass so that it's like kind of not taking up the full spectrum of audio, and then when it drops, the lead bass will come in and like blow the roof off the place. So, but anyway, what I want y'all to take away is this idea of like taking a fragment of your melody, repeating it a few times, and then playing the full thing for the drop. Let's see, we got time to show a couple more ideas. So another thing that can be really effective right before the drop is a little drum fill. So, and I don't think we've talked too much about them real quick thus far, too much. But let's show how to do a tom fill. Show how you can use the different pitches that Simpler lets you play notes at to create like multiple different drum sounds from a single tone. So a tom is kind of like, it's sort of like a snare without the beads on the bottom that make it rattle, and it can be at all sorts of different pitches. And usually you get like in a drum kit you would have a few of them, so you can go do 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 do, something like that. So let's grab a nice tom sample here. Not that, and it's got to be one that I can share with y'all too. Maybe this one. That's a bit much for this genre. Okay, yeah, this. Wait, that's an ADV5. I want to. Okay, Cashmere makes some good toms. Let's. Yeah, okay, let's go with this one. All right, so copy this into the Discord. All right, so there's all sorts of different patterns one can make with drums to create a fill. Basically, you're playing the drums in a rhythm that is not the same as like your main groove or your main beat, like in a 4 on the floor pattern where you have the kick going doom 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 doom. Maybe you would have the kick go something like doom 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 doom. So changing up the rhythm of the drums, adding in some other drums playing at different rhythms to kind of temporarily suspend the groove that the listener is locked into before then throwing them back into it. So it's like, if you think about it in terms of contrast, it's like going from a steady set pattern to a more chaotic, unpatterned kind of drum selection of drum sounds. So quickly, we'll make a new MIDI track. We'll put that one tom sample here on it, and let's do like a something simple. So remember I said like C3 is the note that the sample is originally played at. So if we play it at different pitches, we can get different tones for the tom, and we can make it sound like it's kind of going down in pitch over time. So maybe we'll do like C4, C4, and then F3, F3, and then A2, A2, and then something like that. So now we'll go right before the drop. Let's turn all the volumes up. And then, for added dynamics, we can make every other hit a little bit quieter. But now when we do that, we'll get this kind of sound. Yeah, and maybe to send it home, maybe we'll put a crash cymbal right at the end. This is also a good opportunity to use a reverse cymbal to create like a kind of extra sense of rising upstroke right at the end of the drop. So we could take maybe we could take this little segment of our crash, copy it here, press Shift R to reverse it, and now it'll kind of like swoop upwards. So we get this sound. And yeah, reverse cymbals are used heavily throughout all genres of EDM. They're great. They immediately create this they create this like pulling you along sort of sensation. And you can take any old cymbal you have and just press Shift R to reverse it, or right click and reverse it. Reverse clips here. But we're at time. Didn't quite get to demonstrate all the aspects of build-ups that I would have liked, but as long as you remember this general idea of it's a transition. You're bringing the energy from a low point to a high point. You do that by like gradually increasing the pace and speed of different elements over time, and then right before the drop, you throw in an extra flourish. Could put in a pre-drop vocal, like a catchphrase that gets you hype, and then also remember this idea of like giving the listener pre-nostalgia by teasing out a little bit of the main theme as part of the build-up. That also will pull them forward and make them wonder, like, oh my God, what are we going to hear in the drop? I'm so excited for it. The tutorial video has some additional ideas in it as well, like some other sounds too that you can program in Vital. But yeah, let's end here. Your homework is going to be to add a build up to could be one of the songs we've already worked on in class. Could be a new track if you want to start something else new. But ideally something with with a melody, or if you want to do like a spoken word sample for the drop, you could tease that in a way. Take a little fragment of it and then play it faster and faster throughout. But if you have any questions about how to do this, feel free to drop your questions in the Discord as you're working on the homework. And yeah, I'll see y'all here next week. Any parting thoughts, last questions, final things you want me to point out before we adjourn for the day? Okay. Let's see. Animal asks, how do I save specific racks for different types of instruments? Okay, yeah. So usually there's like a little save icon in the corner of your whatever VST you're using, at least of the default ones built into Ableton. So like, let's say this is a drum rack. Click group to drum rack. Now I have the save icon here in the drum rack, and I can name it whatever I want. And then when I load it up, and I think that's good practice too. Like if you find a handful of drum sounds that you think work really well together, put them on a drum rack, save that, and then you can just use that as a preset for yourself. Cameron asked what was the YouTube downloader I used. Let's see, I typed in YouTube to MP3 and it was the first result, so this one. How many classes do we have left? So this was session 5. We have 3 more after this. Oh, I should mention that we're not going to have class on the 10th. I'm going to be out of town for work. So our last 3 sessions are going to be June 3rd, June 3rd, 17th, and 24th. If your Ableton trial is running out, I think that would be a good time to get Ableton Lite. If you're not ready to spend the money on the intro version of Ableton, I think it's $99 right now. You also might be able to get an educational discount if you can. I think you can literally just tell them you're a student. You don't even necessarily need to have like an EDU email address. I think Ableton Live student discount, or I think there's an educator's discount. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so you might be able to. I feel like I've used this before, so. Okay, you may have to upload a copy of your student ID. So, your mileage may vary there. Let's see. Had to submit. That's what we use, but didn't have a date and it was super easy. Okay. All right, so it should be possible to get the student discount. Also, that's the YouTube to MP3 downloader up there. Ontic, nice. Yeah. Use your cousin's ID if you have to. That's a good option. All right. Oh, Kadam says that he's resampling to stack several drum hits on top of each other to create a single clip. That's a great idea. Very creative. And all right, I don't see any more questions. So thanks again, everyone, for attending, and I'll see y'all next week. All right.